Blizzcon! This is pretty cool. Who saw the opening ceremony and is excited to hear more about Lunara, Greymane, and gall? Well, we're really happy that we have this opportunity to share this information with you. My name is Hugh Shelton. I'm the lead hero designer. I'm joined by Phil Gonzalez, lead character artist, and Ken Eric Hagman, senior game designer. So before we take a look at the new heroes, let's look back at who we've released over this past year. As you can see, we've been pretty busy, and we're not slowing down. Right now, back at the office, we have over 10 different heroes that are at all various stages of development. I can't say. So you might be wondering how we go about choosing which characters to add into the game. And so we're going to talk about some of the things that we take into consideration each time. First off, you've seen us adding heroes from World of Warcraft, from Diablo, from StarCraft, and from Warcraft in general, as well as from Blizzard Classic games. And we're also really happy to be adding Overwatch heroes in the mix coming up pretty soon. And we're always looking at role diversity, and we have a lot of data to dig into on live. And so we know that heroes like Nova and Kael'thas are being played a lot. And these ranged assassins are showing up in a lot of the teams that you're playing against. So by adding more ranged assassins, we hope to really increase the variety of the types of team compositions that you're playing against. And silhouette. Silhouette is the outline of the character, and it is what helps characters stand out from all the other ones. Heroes like Lunara, gall, and Greymane all have very distinct silhouettes, and so we know that they're going to stand out from the rest of our roster. And then also, sometimes we're looking to bend the rules of the genre, and we need characters that can fit with mechanics that are pretty unusual. A character that rarely leaves the base, or another character that requires 2 heroes to play. They require somebody special. And so we have a list back at the office.
Oh, you're teasing them, Hugh.
And I didn't just announce all of these heroes. But they are heroes that are on this big, massive list. It's nearly 200 characters long. And this is a sampling of who those characters are. This started off with the hero designers and the artists who work directly on hero development. We then added to it by asking our entire Heroes of the Storm development team who they would like to see added into the game. And we looked at what you wanted us to add into the game by looking at posts on Reddit, by looking at websites that are dedicated to upvoting the heroes that you're excited about. And then finally, this list grows a little bit as Blizzard adds new characters, and it shrinks just a wee bit every time we add a hero into the Storm. So I talked about some of the things that we take into consideration, but really the most important thing is, are we excited about that character? Because we have a lot of really passionate developers on this team, and many of us have spent most of our lives playing Blizzard games. And we strongly believe that we're going to make the best hero when the hero designer working on them is excited about them. So choosing a character is just one step in this process of getting a hero into the game. Once we have that hero selected, we go into what we call the paper design phase, which lasts for about 2 weeks. And this is where a hero designer will work on coming up with the strengths and weaknesses of the character, their description, and also the abilities that they'll be using. And during this time, there's a lot of back and forth with the rest of the heroes development team, the design team particularly, to try to nail down what that kit is. And once we're feeling confident, we can move into the next stage where we have a technical designer take that paper design and actually turn it into a playable hero. Once they're a playable hero, we can move into the next stage where we have AI playtests. This is just to test the hero against AI opponents to look for things like kit synergy problems, to look for any obvious bugs, and it also gives us an opportunity to balance the character a bit before we move into the next stage, which is where we have design playtests. These design playtests last for 8 weeks for each hero, and we do them every single morning, 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. And they include the hero designers, the map designers, and the balance designers. And on top of those 8 weeks, we also have 4 weeks where the entire Heroes of the Storm development team can play this new hero and send in their feedback. So you can see that just on the design side of things, we have a lot of time to iterate, we have a lot of time to respond to feedback, and we get a lot of feedback from different people. But at the end of this time, we feel pretty confident with the hero, and I'm going to hand things over to Phil so that he can talk a little bit about the art vision sync, and he's also going to introduce you to Lunara.
Hi guys, I'm Phil Gonzalez. I'm a lead character artist on Heroes of the Storm, and we're going to talk about the vision sync. The vision sync occurs after the 17-week design button. The 17 weeks of design preliminary work that goes into deciding what hero we're going to develop, what those mechanics are, the play testing, and when we get this email, this is when we know we're putting a ring on it. This is when we know we are committing to a character and we're going to build it. This is my most boring slide. I'm going to talk to you about a lot of the artistic process, but when we get this email, it includes the designers who pitch us the design, they explain the abilities, the special features. It includes the character artists who will be ultimately drawing research together, showing the different visions we have of the character, deciding on that final look. We have the animators who decide how it's going to animate and move, the effects artists who plan out the way the abilities look, the technical artists who have to implement everything. We have writers who give us character feedback. We have the sound team in the loop so they understand what's coming. We have the engineers so we can talk about the AI and all the other special features. It's a very, very good time for everyone to discuss what it's going to take to actually create this character. So let's start with Lunara. As Hugh mentioned, she has a very, very unique silhouette. Being a night elf dryad, they're a very, very diverse race with mountain giants, druids, dryads, and in Lunara's case, being a dryad, she is the upper body of a night elf and the lower body of a deer. This is extremely important because based on the vision sync, we came to understand that her movement was very, very particular. And there are other details, such as the fact that she wasn't a very hardy character. She was very lightly armored. And what we did is we started pulling out these concepts. The ones you see right now are from Warcraft 3. These Warcraft 3 concepts had a lot of detail that we weren't able to accomplish in our immediate executions of the Dryad and in 3D. You'll notice a lot of the foliage and the hair, the armor, things like that. When we developed Warcraft 3, we couldn't use that level of resolution. It was a very low poly game. Thankfully, Dryads are such an iconic character that they were a natural addition to the World of Warcraft and the resolution somewhat improved. Diving into Lunara, we gravitated back towards some of those classic designs, the light armor, a lot more integration of her nature-related aesthetics, like the vines crawling down her arms, the foliage in her hair. It was really, really cool to integrate that because night elves are one with nature. It's a very important detail. And details make a huge difference with these characters. This is something we crank up to 10, 11, yeah, with the master skins. We add bigger horns, more foliage, the armor gets more intricate. It's a lot of fun to express these characters to a greater degree with the master skins. I'm going to give you a look at the 3D models that we ended up going with, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Hugh to talk about the hero design. So here's the base model. You can see a lot of those details I was referring to. And when we switch to the master skin, you're going to see her pop and just amp up. She's even better. It's really fun bringing these to the table, and it's something we're going to do with all the heroes in this panel.
Thank you, Phil. So Lunara, who among you are familiar with one of my favorite games, Warcraft 3? Yeah. So if you're not familiar, the Dryad was a night elf unit. They were fast moving, they had slowing poison, and they had anti-magic capabilities. And we thought that some of these elements would translate well into heroes. And so let's talk about how we re-envisioned them for Lunara. First off, let's talk about her Z. The Z is where normally heroes mount up. But for Lunara, we did something a little different, and we gave her the first passive, always-on movement ability. And as you can see in this video, she doesn't move like our normal heroes. She bounds forward. And this does a couple of different things for gameplay. It means that she's able to get out of AoEs a little bit easier than some other characters. And she's also able to avoid skill shots easier than other characters. Since this movement speed bonus is about 20% faster, she's able to kite melee enemies. But it does put her at a little bit of a disadvantage on larger maps when she's moving to a map objective, because she can't mount up like everybody else. Lunara's trait is Nature's Toxin. And the way that this works is that whenever Lunara lands a basic attack or one of her abilities, she applies a damage over time effect. And this ability can stack multiple times. So as you'll see in this video, Lunara is really encouraged to spread her damage around to get the most out of that trait. And one of the ways that she can get the most out of that trait pretty effectively is with her Q. The Q is a ground target AoE, and it deals damage on impact while also applying the trait. This is what Lunara is going to want to use if you're trying to poke at enemies that are just a little bit out of range of your basic attacks. Lunara's W is Crippling Spores. And this ability is only usable when Lunara has her trait active on some enemies. Once she does activate it, it will slow down all of those enemies. So this gives Lunara another reason to really spread that trait damage around. Now before we talk about her E, let's talk about her heroics. And the reason why we want to touch on this first is because both of these heroics are fairly short cooldowns and they have multiple charges. So we know that she's going to be using them pretty frequently in combat. The first of these two heroics is Thornwood Vine. This is a long-range, fast-moving skill shot, and it's on a 15-second cooldown with 3 charges. This is the heroic that you're going to want to take if you're building a team around long-range poke, or if you're facing enemies that might lock you down if you get too close. Lunara's other heroic is Leaping Strike. Now this is intended to be an ability where Lunara targets an enemy, she leaps over them, sort of winks at the camera, and throws a spear as she passes. On paper, this ability is pretty unconventional because as a ranged assassin, you don't normally want to put yourself into the middle of the enemy team. So what we did is we gave it 2 charges. So even in situations where you're facing off against the other team's front line, you can jump over and jump back. Now I'm going to run through a few videos where you can use this ability in different ways. This first video shows that use of jumping over, and jumping back over. In the second video, you can see the types of mobility in the jungle that this ability allows you to have if you're jumping over a merc camp or if you're jumping over another enemy hero. And this final video shows how much mobility you can really get out of this. If you jump over the first enemy and then jump over the second enemy, you can reposition yourself really effectively in the middle of a chaotic team fight. And it really allows for some pretty exciting moments. So we talked about Lunara, most of Lunara's basic abilities, and we talked about her heroics, and we skipped her E. And that's because, once again, we did something a little bit different. We've done this a little bit before, but we've added an ability that is purely about utility. The Wisp. The Wisp is another unit that was found in Warcraft 3. And what we keyed in on was its ability to grant vision in an area. So as you can see here, Lunara is able to send a Wisp out from her current location and then redirect it multiple times once it's out there. This ability is really good in the early game if you're going to give yourself vision in a lane to prevent a gank, or it's also pretty useful later on in a match when you want to scout out the enemies doing a map objective, such as a boss. And one last thing I wanted to touch on for Lunara is her anti-magic capabilities. We gave her 2 talents, one at level 13 and one at level 20. The first one is Greater Spell Shield, which reduces all incoming magic damage by 75%. We didn't want to go all the way to the 100%, but we did hit the 75%, which is still pretty strong. And we also went with a level 20 heroic, Abolish Magic, or a level 20 talent, Abolish Magic, which you can cast it on an ally, and it will remove a CC from them, as well as removing CC from you, and it will remove damage over time effects. And so that's Lunara. She's a fragile ranged assassin who wears down her enemies with her trait, and she keeps her distance with mobility. We had a lot of fun making her, and we hope you enjoyed playing her out on the show floor. I'm going to hand things back over to Phil so he can introduce you to Greymane.
So King Gen Greymane. After 17 weeks of the same preliminary process, we had a vision sync about Greymane. And the most interesting challenge was the fact that we were dealing with a shapeshifter. These are very, very unique characters, and there's many in the WoW universe. For example, there's the Druids. And something that we keyed in on was that Druids, for example, their costumes are very indicative of the characters they transform into. Druids of the Claws can transform into bears, and when they're in Night Elf form, they're wearing bear fur. Greymane has a very unique situation. Not being a traditional druid, he's a faction leader of the realm of Gilneas. And that's a realm that's very, very wet. It's coastal, they wear a lot of trench coats, but we immediately recognize that the biggest challenge for this character would be indicating that when he's in human form, this is the same character we're seeing when he's transformed into a monstrous worgen, just completely wrecking face. The costume elements are extremely effective in terms of creating an identifiable visual thing that you can look at on one form and correlate it to the other. This even extends to finer details like the facial scars and even the facial hair. As with all the vision syncs, once we're presented with the main mechanics, the abilities, the animations, the wants, we pulled together all the artwork we can find. Some of the most significant pieces were from the WoW comic Curse of the Worgen. We noticed several details that we could translate into the Nexus version of Greymane. And something we were very, very interested in was him wielding both a sword and a pistol, like this cover art by Glenn Rain. We also happened to come to know that in Legion, we would be updating Greymane's model, which is very, very exciting. This model update gave us another source of inspiration for details we could borrow for the Greymane version that we see in the Nexus, which ultimately led us to a design that enhanced some areas, giving him an iconic shoulder pad, some of the epaulets, things that really help pop out and create that correlation I was talking about. The fact that he turns into a worgen is completely amazing. It drives a lot of his hero design. And the fact that he can shapeshift is so important to executing this character effectively and creating very, very successful immersion. And as I said, at level 10, things get even crazier. The Master Skin, he bought another shoulder pad, he got a belt buckle that would make a cowboy proud, he bought a hat, and he has claws on his claws. This is the exact kind of thing we love doing with Master Skins. Let's have a look at the final artwork for the model. This is the base skin of the human form and the worgen. And let's crank it up to the Master Skin. I'm going to turn it back over to Kent Eric, and he's going to talk to you about the hero design.
Thank you, Phil. What's up, Blizzcon? You guys excited? So my name is Kent Eric, along with Hugh. I'm another one of the hero designers on the team. I kind of want to walk you through the process of making Greymane. So Greymane came from a completely different area than Lunara. We knew we wanted to bring in more ranged attackers into the game, and we looked at the Warcraft 3 Dryad. We're like, man, we love that unit. Like, that silhouette is super iconic, unique. We can do some cool stuff with this. But we were talking about bringing in another ranged assassin. And we looked across our game, and we have some really cool basic attack characters. Characters like James Raynor and Vala, the Demon Hunter. And we knew we were also bringing in Lunara. We wanted to make sure that we did something a little bit different mechanically. And so we were sitting around in that room discussing various new mechanics that we could do when somebody had what we thought was a pretty cool idea. What if we did a character that kind of started off poking you from afar, say something like a Falstad. But then, when you got low, what if this same character could go in as a melee to finish you off? Wouldn't that be pretty cool? And we were all looking around the room like, yeah, that's interesting, that's different, that's very unique for our game. But there's two forms. This sounds like a shapeshifter. And when you say shapeshifter within the halls of Blizzard, there's always two things that immediately pop to mind: druids and worgen. And once the word worgen got loosed in that room, everyone's eyes went real wide with excitement. We were all thinking, man, I love worgen, but I don't know if everyone else does, so I'm not going to say anything. And we were all looking around, and we realized, wait, that guy likes worgen too, and that guy likes worgen, and we all love worgen, and we all got really excited. Because once you start talking about worgen, well, we got to talk about their leader, King Greymane. Look at him. Oh, his majesty. This is a guy that, if you've played Cataclysm and have rolled a worgen character, you've seen his story. The story of a king who's trying to help his people, but ultimately fails, pretty epically too, and is now out for honor and glory to redeem his people. And our hearts really ran away with the character right away before we even started. But we knew we had to check in with the art team, and so we walked out of that room and immediately walked down the hall to the art pit, and we asked those guys, hey, well, could we do Greymane? And as you may have gleaned from Phil's talk, they were pretty excited to do this character. So we immediately set to work on the paper design, starting with that long process Hugh outlined. And when starting on the design for Greymane, we started with that initial concept we started, and we developed it into a tagline. That is a short phrase that kind of describes the character and is going to drive their design. For Greymane, this tagline was pretty simply what I kind of told you earlier: the ranged assassin who wears you down from afar before going into melee form and ripping your throat out as a worgen. We really wanted every aspect of his design, every ability, to just ooze with this two sides of one coin characteristic. We wanted shape-shifting to be this epic moment that was like, lets you know Greymane is in for the kill. And so we started with asking that question of, how does Greymane shapeshift? Is it just like a button you press, like the D key, and you just press it and you're a human, and you're a worgen, and you're a human, you're a worgen, and you're just flipping forms all the time? Or is there something else we could do? Could we tie it to one of the abilities? And once we opened ourselves to that idea, we really kind of blew open the design. And I want to start with that, his E ability. It's really two abilities: Dark Flight and Disengage. Now, as a human, the ability is Dark Flight. It allows human Greymane to leap towards his enemy, becoming a worgen mid-flight and tearing at them with his claws. As a worgen, however, the ability changes and becomes Disengage. This ability allows Greymane to tumble away, popping up in a human form, pistol ablazing, ready to continue combat from afar. We've got a short little video here showing you in action against poor Leoric, who's just standing there doing nothing wrong, where Greymane leaps in as a worgen, and now he's going to be able to roll away to pop back up as a human, ready to go again. What we love about this is that the ability really directs the player how each form is supposed to be used. Worgen form is all about being in melee range. You do significantly more damage with your basic attacks as a worgen than you do as a human, and you want to be up close. But human form is all about wearing your opponent down from afar with your pistol, and Disengage gives you that space. Next, I want to talk to you about his Q ability. This is another button that flips based on which form you're in. As a human, this ability is Gilnean Cocktail. Now, being the king of Gilneas, Greymane has fantastic access to this vast library of weapons. And here, he's pulled out these various cocktails ready to hurl at his opponents. This glass is filled with all kinds of chemicals, and you'll watch Greymane hurl it at his opponent, and actually does very little damage to the first target it hits. But it's the enemies behind the opponent that really feel the real brunt of this spell. As you watch these Lost Vikings caught behind Kerrigan, they take triple the damage that she does from the explosive blast of this ability. But while that may be a great ability for human Greymane to wear down his opponents, worgen Greymane wants something else altogether. And his ability is called Razor Swipe. This ability is on a very low cooldown, allowing him to use it frequently, and it's all about mobility. It allows Greymane to stick to his opponents, as you'll see in this video. He's going to dash forward at a very short distance, sweeping at his enemies around him, allowing him to continue getting more basic attacks off, as that is where the majority of his damage is found. Now, I want to talk to you about his two heroics. And again, we went back to that tagline, and we had each heroic really reflect the two forms of Greymane. The first one is marked for the kill. In this ability, you'll watch a human Greymane fire off a silver bullet towards his opponents. And the first enemy hit is marked and made vulnerable. It means they take 25% more damage from all sources, including your teammates. This is great at the start of a fight, exactly what human Greymane wants. But the ability gets better after that, as you'll see his poor butcher take the mark. As Greymane can then leap as a Worgen incredible distance, closing the gap on that opponent, allowing him to finish them off in case they thought they were going to get away. But as a Worgen, that Worgen finisher style we want to reflect with Go for the Throat. And this heroic ability, you'll watch Greymane leap a short distance and just eviscerate his opponent, doing 3 vicious strikes, doing high damage. But if Greymane kills the opponent with this ability, he gets to use it again for free in the next 10 seconds. As you'll watch in this video here, you have a poor Illidan just standing right there, getting ripped up by Greymane, who then can use the ability again on Thrall there. Now, Phil was talking about how for the master skins, they'll take the concept of a character and really crank it up to 11. And so we love to do the same with the level 20 talents that upgrade heroic abilities. And Unleashed is the next evolution of Go for the Throat. And I'm going to step you inside Greymane's dreams that he has as he sleeps at night. A low health team running away. For you see, Unleashed lets Greymane continually recast Go for the Throat every time it lands a kill. And Greymane just loves finding low health teams running away. So if you're fighting against a Greymane, watch your health bar. So that's Greymane. Again, he is here on the show floor playable. In case you haven't gotten a chance, go check him out. Learn to wear down your opponents as a human using your pistol, and then when they're low, leap in as a Worgen and tear their throats out. Now I'm going to hand over to Phil, who's going to talk to you about our last hero today.
You guys saw this, right? So Cho'Gall is the first heroic two-headed ogre in the Warcraft universe. In 1995, we introduced him in Warcraft 2, Tides of Darkness. And if you guys don't have a calendar, that means you've missed 20 of Cho'Gall's birthdays. But when he was 17, we had a Vision Sync meeting back in 2012. And we really gravitated towards Cho'Gall. The ogres are fantastic characters. His silhouette is amazing. He's one of the biggest characters we have. And at the time, we were blazing ahead like crazy people, making as many characters as we could because we were having so much fun blending these universes together in the Nexus. This is a really early screenshot. Cho'Gall had just gotten his tattoos done, and you can see a lot of details like team color and things that aren't in the game now. But at this time, this is a key example of what our roster was doing. We were just increasing the roster as quickly as possible, and then we stopped because we made a very significant design decision to implement the talent system. The talent system adds so much depth, so much creativity. It gives us tons of options for our hero designs. And in implementing the talent system, we downsized the roster to about 10 heroes for a while, and we really focused on making that talent system work. Cho'Gall has been waiting 3 years to impress you guys. So he's here now, and he's very special because having a conjoined twin means we have 2 very distinct personalities. We have Cho, who fancies himself a bit of a bruiser, and we got Gall, who's a lot more caster-oriented. And we looked at all of that rich history in the Vision Sync meeting after discussing all the implementation plans, the design, the art, the effects, all those aesthetics, the implementation, and we said, okay, here's what we have to work with. In Warcraft 2, we have literally 3 pieces of artwork of Cho'Gall. We have an in-game sprite that's team-colored purple, a unique portrait, and a portrait drawing in the manual. Okay, is that it? No, it turns out he didn't die in Warcraft 2. He was hanging out in AQ40 getting hopped up on Cthulhu's brainwaves. He's starting to mutate. They're evolving his design, which was really interesting. He had some cool new armor that reflected his chieftain status of the Twilight's Hammer clan. but he's also starting to mutate. He's on his way to becoming that epic raid boss that we fought in World of Warcraft Cataclysm. And man, he changed a lot. I mean, he worked out. He's in great shape, but he got body eyeballs, he got back spikes, he's got worm beard and bird beak. I mean, he is going through some major, major design and visual changes. And something that we immediately identified was, what depiction of Cho'Gall do we want to use? The ogre fantasy is something we're very, very interested in immersing the players in. The fact that it's two conjoined personalities working together. And we felt that it would be a lot more interesting to go to Cho'Gall's roots as an up-and-coming raid boss and really gravitating towards that original ogre fantasy, while incorporating a lot of those design elements that were manifesting on his way to becoming an ultimate evil. Things like the armor design I pointed out. We were able to bring that onto the ogre and make him very, very cool. And the Twilight's Hammer didn't really exist in Warcraft 2. It's great to be able to borrow that weapon. Borrowing things like this is a lot of the fun of designing these heroes, visually and design-wise. And something that was a really, really fun experience was developing this master skin. Like I said, Cho'Gall fancies himself a bruiser, and he's got all that bruiser armor that we saw from the Warcraft ogre camps, while Gall, on the other hand, is a caster, and he's very much looking like an ogre mage. It's so fun to develop these heroes, to make all these decisions, to bring them to the most heightened version of themselves in the Nexus. And the best thing about the master skin of Cho'Gall is that nipple spike. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to Kent Eric to talk about the hero design.
Killing it, Phil. Oh my gosh, I am so glad we can unveil Cho'Gall to you guys. It has been really hard to not talk about this guy because I'm so excited to bring the two-headed ogre to you guys. Gosh, where do I start? Last year, Blizzcon, we wrapped up the show. We were so excited with all we had done, and we were talking about the future. What new heroes were we going to be bringing to you guys? And we were looking at our roster, and we were looking at all the different wacky heroes we had done that kind of broken the genre in different ways. And I'm talking heroes like Murky, where to use the word hero is a strong word for Murky. I mean, he's a baby Murloc, but we love him. And then we have Leoric, who doesn't really die. He sticks around as a ghost, haunting the battleground. And last year, we had unveiled on you guys the Lost Vikings. Woo! Got some Vikings players out there. 3 distinct, unique heroes, all controlled by one player. And we were looking at that huge list he was referencing of 200+ heroes. And we're like, man, what are we going to do for BlizzCon 2015? How are we going to break the rules again, like Dustin was talking about during the opening ceremony? And we were looking at those heroes, and someone was looking at Cho'Gall, and we were looking at his 2 heads, and you go, hey guys, I got an idea. We just did the Vikings. That's one player controlling 3 heroes. What if we did the opposite? What if we did, 2 players controlling 1 hero? And we're like, that's funny. You're a funny guy. That's hilarious. In fact, let me tell you how funny it is. We did that as an April Fool's joke back in 2004. You want to remember that? I'm not going to lie. When I was in high school when this came out, this April Fool's joke, I got really excited about it. Because I was like, oh my gosh. And I told my best friend at the time, Mike, I'm like, Mike, we got to play 2-headed ogres together. And then we realized it was the 1st of April. But we were looking at making Cho'Gall, and we're like, we can't do that, right? Like, that's too crazy. I mean, think of all the things that will be broken, right? I mean, what's it going to be like to ride shotgun? You're this other head just attached. Like, is that going to be fun? Or what do you mean one team only has 4 heroes now because 2 people are stuck in one body? Like, will that work for gameplay-wise? Like, that's got to be broken, right? Or how do you even pick the hero? Like, in quick match? Or how do you draft him? Like, oh, my head hurts. I need a second head. And we looked at all these questions and these challenges. And realized, no, you know what? They have solves. In fact, we did an early prototype playtest, Hugh and I, and we realized it's actually really fun to ride shotgun. It's a very unique experience in the Nexus. And we sat down, we talked with our balance designers about balancing a game around having 4 heroes instead of 5. And you're like, you know what? We can tune them up. We've done heroes like Murky and Leoric and the Vikings. Like, we think there's a set of values we can hit numerically to make this hero work. I'm like, okay. And we sat down with our online designers and engineers. And we're like, you know what? We have solves. We can make it possible to pick this hero in a very sane way so nobody's head explodes at trying to play the hero. We're like, all right, let's do this. So we started on that, what was that, like 17 weeks in that process? I can't even keep count. We started on that 3-month or so process of designing the hero. And we went through a ton of iterations. This guy, it's been a crazy, crazy trip. And I want to introduce you to Cho and Gall. So first up, let's start with Cho. Cho, as Phil said, much more of that ogre brute warrior playstyle. And he is the melee warrior. He controls the movement for Cho Gall. He controls the basic attack. Where he goes, Gall is dragged along, whether he wants to or not. And I'm going to show you a short little video showing him his Q and W abilities in action. So first, you'll see Cho here running around. He controls this, and using his surging fist ability, he winds up a punch and dashes forward. He controls the basic attack, and he has another ability called Consuming Blaze, where he ignites nearby enemies, putting them on fire. But Gall's completely different. Gall has an entirely different sort of personality, often at odds with Cho. But Gall is stuck going where Cho takes him. Gall is the ranged assassin. He's much more that spellcaster, that ogre mage. And as you'll see in this video, he has a few abilities of his own that are on very low cooldowns, allowing him to remain very active. First is Shadow Flame, where he burns opponents in a line. And finally, Dread Orb, a bouncy ball of pain that bounces along its path, dealing damage to enemies caught in its wake. But what really ties the two heads together is their E button. Rune Bomb for Cho, and Runic Blast for Gall. When making Cho Gall, we didn't want to just take Hero A and Hero B and just kind of put them on one body together and call it a day and be like, yeah, it's great, we did a two-headed hero, woo! No, we really wanted each head to care and be integrated with the other head. We wanted the two players to learn to work together, to synergize their combos together, to do a lot. And we really encapsulated that with this E ability. So what you're going to see here, it's a very straightforward video as you're about to watch, is Cho's going to hurl this bowling ball filled with spikes towards a direction. It's going to damage enemies in its path for a small amount of damage. Most importantly is that Gall, when this bomb is thrown out, Cho will yell at him, bombs away, the bomb's out. And his E button will light up and allow him to activate it, called Runic Blast. And this detonates the bomb, as you'll see here. So Cho's going to throw it out along this line, and Gall will detonate it. This is a two-player coordinated spell. Throughout the entire game, the two heads will be working together for this. Sorry, I thought that last one was on loop, and I was going to show you again, but oh well. Now, what's really fun is the magic of Cho Gall. We went through a lot of iterations and a lot of play tests. And while we were playtesting Cho Gall, there's two stories I'd love to share with you, things that are really unique to Cho Gall. And the first is that raid boss feeling. This is something you really only get with Cho Gall. And I'm going to show you a super staged video of a Mirrodin and a Falstad trying to get the gank on a Cho Gall. Now in this video, everyone's level 20, so we put it as even footing. But watch what's going to happen here. They're going to get the jump on our poor ogre buddy, and Cho is going to stay focused on Mirrodin this whole time. But Gall is burning down Falstad continually with his Shadow Flame ability. They dodge the heroic or Hinterland Blast now, I'm sorry, from Falstad. I'm sorry, we change names all the time. And then they blow him up with that Rune Bomb while Mirrodin is continually getting worn away. And then they pop out their heroic abilities, Shadow Bolt Volley and Upheaval there to finish him off. And let me tell you, when the two of you guys take down 2 or 3 opponents, it's a real high five moment. You're like, yeah, we're the raid boss. Come at us. And when you're that other one guy on the other team and you kill Cho Gall, oh man, that's a moment. That's always a double kill, first of all, every time. But you also realize you've taken out 2/5 of the enemy team in one blow. He really shapes the fights around him, and it's something super unique to Cho Gall. Now, the other story for you is a little bit of a heartbreaker. You see, there was one day I was assigned to play Cho Gall for 3 games in a row, And then that fourth game, I was playing some other kind of boring one-headed hero. And that fourth game loads up. Just played 3 games with Cho'Gall, had so much fun. Fourth game loads up, spawn into the Nexus. I run out to the gate. We have our headsets on in our playtest. We're on our voice chat program. And I press my Alt key for my push to talk. And I get ready to say something to my second head when I realize he's not there. He was gone. I lost my buddy. He was in top lane. I was in bottom. And I was like, no, my buddy. Like, we were having so much fun. And that's when I realized we have something really special with Cho'Gall. There's this unique emotional bond that forms when you're conjoined at the neck like this. It's something really special, and we really wanted to make sure that you'd be able to play Cho'Gall with your friends, especially if they were new to the Nexus, without having to buy him. And that's why, if you were here for opening ceremony, you heard Dustin announce that your friends don't need to own Cho'Gall to play with you. Just you need to own Cho'Gall. And if you're here at Blizzcon or watching the virtual ticket, you're going to get Cho'Gall for free. And as Dustin mentioned, we are running that promotion, the Cho'Gall Buddy Brawl, where if you help your friend win a few games as Cho'Gall, they'll unlock Cho'Gall for free, thus spreading the virus. And they can then spread Cho'Gall to their friends as well. And if you help Cho'Gall spread to a few friends, we'll even throw some gold your way. Now, all the details can be found at the heroesofthestorm.com website, so be sure to go check that out if you have any more questions about it. But that's Cho'Gall. Again, he's here on the show floor. So if you came with somebody, go check him out. Learn to coordinate your 2 heads together rather than fight against each other. But if you don't have anybody to play Cho'Gall with, go find someone to play with. You'll really become friends fast. There is no better way to learn how somebody works than to be the second head for them. So I'm going to hand over to Phil, who's got a last little thing to show you guys.
So before we open it up to QA, we're going to go over a couple things. In reference to Cho'Gall, the key to any relationship is communication. And even though ogres bicker a lot, they did figure out how to mount up in the Nexus. In case you're wondering, Cho'Gall is moving at mounted speed. He's doing it right. You got this, guys. If you want to ride a horse normally, you can, but this is a little bit more fun, and we love getting opportunities to do this. And did you hear about this? This is so exciting for us. We told you guys for a long time that we're very, very excited about the Overwatch universe being brought into the Nexus, that we were waiting to understand what the Overwatch universe was, what those experiences would be, and it was simply, when it comes out, we are ready. And the Overwatch team said, knock it off, Tracer is ready. And we are in the process of getting her into the Nexus. These are some very, very early pose tests. We don't have much to talk about her right now. We can't really answer any questions during the QA. But thank you guys so very, very much for listening to us, letting us share the development process with you, and being such an outspoken community and helping make this game better and better every time. There's a microphone over here. Please line up. We have 15 minutes for questions. Thank you again.